Mindfulness has been around in the Western world since the late 1970s. It's an outgrowth of Hindu and Buddhist spiritual practices that go way, way back. The purpose of mindfulness is to set aside distractions of the outside world and become aware of ourselves in the present moment, as Connie was describing earlier today. This involves awareness of your mental and emotional and physical states. Paying attention to how you feel sounds so simple, but it can be a bit of a project. I know there's, for some of us, a bit of mystery around meditation and what it looks like and what it means. So I thought I'd take a minute to talk about my meditation practice, to take a little bit of the mystery out of it. Like music, language, or other skills, spending a little bit of time every day is more fruitful than working really hard one day and setting it aside for the rest of the week. I don't know the science behind daily practice, but our brains, for some reason, work better that way for learning skills. And practice can make something that seems awkward at first become more and more natural over time. If you take a long break, it feels awkward and clumsy again until you get back into the rhythm. So I emphasize try to meditate every day. It doesn't always happen, but most days it does. There are tons of apps on your phone that people use. The only thing I use on my phone is a timer. And sometimes I'll play some gentle background music, but I find that the timer is really invaluable. It allows me to let go of wondering how long I've been sitting here. It allows me to set aside the rest of life to say, this is the designated time for meditation. The rest of the world is going to be there in 20 minutes. 20 minutes. I don't know why 20 minutes is the magic number. It's the amount of time that a lot of people recommend, though. Gandhi famously said that you should meditate for 20 minutes every day unless you're really busy that day, and then you should meditate for 40 minutes. In my experience, it takes the majority of that time just to settle down. So I set my timer for 20 minutes and I sit in a comfortable position. In meditation, we try to find stillness. It doesn't mean that you must remain absolutely still, but finding a position that's comfortable, that you can stay physically still in, allows your mind to follow suit. Laying down doesn't work for me. I get way too sleepy, so I sit. I was sitting on my couch cross-legged. Just a couple of weeks ago, though, I bought a meditation pillow. I always thought it was sort of pretentious to have a cushion to sit on for meditation. It turns out it makes a big difference. My legs don't get squashed anymore, and it helps me to sit up straighter. But really, any old chair or sofa will work. So I set my timer and I sit there. A good portion of the time is spent paying attention to my body and my mind. When I say paying attention to my body, I mean slowly scanning from head to toe to notice any tightness or discomfort or pleasant sensations. It's amazing to me how many physical sensations of our body that we ignore, even while sitting there. The other physical sensation that I pay attention to is my breath. When my mind is wandering all over the place, I can settle it back down by paying attention to my breath for a count of 10 breaths. By paying attention, I mean sort of like the way I introduced that meditation, paying attention to the breath all the way in and all the way out. And if it's a really scattered day, if all I can do is breathe, then I focus on breathing for 20 minutes. There's a lot of paying attention to the body. I also have to spend some effort paying attention to my emotional state. For a lot of us, for a lot of different reasons, we don't pay very close attention to what's going on in our heart and mind. In the same way, we can block out the tightness in our shoulders or the tension in a furrowed brow, we don't notice the more subtle emotions that we carry with us in the moment. So as I sit, I pay attention to how I'm feeling. The goal isn't to dissect why or to rehash the story. The goal is just to notice. And then after all that noticing of my mind and body, I try letting go of thoughts. Some practitioners describe this as treating your thoughts as clouds and letting them pass to clear the sky. Some think of it as silt in water, and if you sit still, the silt will settle down to the bottom of the water. I find that stilling my mind is a matter of letting go of words or that internal monologue. I still have sensations, but I stop using words to label or to judge those sensations. When the words stop in my head, I am there. As I describe this process, I realize there's a whole lot going on. It's no wonder it takes 20 minutes to sit down, to breathe, to acknowledge the body and the mind, and then try to let go. It's quite a process. That's what I do indoors. But today I want to talk about encountering nature and how that can help the project of mindfulness. For a long time, spiritual seekers and mindfulness practitioners, monks and priests have gone into the wilderness to settle their mind and reconnect with the sacred. For some, it's where they most readily access God or the sacred or that sense of Mother Earth. Today, though, we're talking about mindfulness, and nature is a spectacular place for cultivating mindfulness too. A big part of mindfulness is observing the connection between the outer world and the inner world, or seeing how external stimuli become thoughts or feelings in our minds. Remember how I spoke about observing the sensations of the body and observing the thoughts and feelings of my mind. Being outdoors offers an opportunity for exactly that type of practice. While in nature, it's easier to recognize how both the inner and the outer worlds happen simultaneously. These seemingly separate realms mirror each other. How can you separate the scarlet sunset that you're seeing from the radiant joy it sparks within you? Where does the sound of a robin singing begin and the vibration of your own inner ear end? How does a nightingale's joyous expression intersect with our own joyous receiving of that? Through developing awareness of the external and the internal world, we can increasingly experience the unity of ourselves with the wider world. We can actually experience the interdependent web of all existence, not just the idea of it, but a lived experience of it. If you do more than stroll through a park on a sunny day, you realize that nature isn't all sunsets and songbirds. Along with those forces of beauty and creation exist destruction, decay, and death. That's sometimes where the rubber meets the road, where nature's lessons move beyond comforting and we learn the hard stuff. One of the strangest moments I experienced backpacking last summer was near the top of a craggy mountain pass. It was Bishop Pass, to be exact, if you're familiar with the Sierras. We had just come over the pass, which was brutal, hiking through fields of hard granite rock and boulders. It's amazing how much your feet can crave flat dirt to walk on when you've been walking on hard granite rocks for a couple of miles. So coming around this corner, I noticed a proliferation of birds that seemed so happy. And it's really unusual to encounter that kind of active life and noise at that high of an elevation. How pleasant, I thought. Just a few yards down the trail, I found the source of their joy and activity. It was the carcasses of a small herd of deer. Clearly, they had been frozen and thawed several times over. And who knows what drove the deer this far up the mountain where they did not belong? Had a rock slide killed them or a lightning strike? Oh, right. And any of those things could happen to me also right here. It was a collision of beauty and rot, delight, fear, curiosity. Since we're not really separate from anything around us, nature's teachings about decay, death, regeneration, and adversity can assist us in our journey of accepting life on life's terms. If we're brave enough to accept the invitation, nature offers the space, the stillness to see the truth of our own mysterious cycles of birth and struggle and death. I said this in a sermon a few weeks ago that we humans are animals, and life is pretty scrappy for animals. It's sometimes beautiful, but there's a whole lot of struggle mixed in there, and that's normal. That's okay. John Muir famously said, even the sick should try these so-called dangerous mountain passes, because for every unfortunate they kill, they cure 1,000. But you don't have to go up there to learn. Yes, the lessons are a little more vivid at 13,000 feet, but the exact same lessons are available just outside our front door. Instead of a herd of deer, your afternoon walk may be interrupted by a dead lizard and an army of ants participating in the cycle of decay and rebirth. You may find a flower that you hadn't noticed before outside your front door. If you're lucky, perhaps a bird's nest will be built in your yard and you can be witness to the magic of new life and growth. It's just a matter of paying attention mostly, slowing down long enough to know that we are fundamentally part of this beautiful, complicated, sometimes painful world. Practicing mindfulness outdoors is really about paying attention. We sometimes hear adventure enthusiasts say, I did the Rockies last year, or I did the Grand Canyon last year, as if this doing is the ultimate. But really, it's about paying attention. Instead of viewing nature like a passing scene, like a movie, if we put a little effort, we can connect through our own experience. I think the most important point is there's no right way of opening ourselves to nature. There's no single right way to meditate. The only wrong way is putting off for tomorrow what can be experienced today. Amen. It's the custom of our congregation to share half of our offering with an organization that shares our values. This month, that organization is Family Promise. We also have a very special pledge message from Carol Wheeler. So let's go ahead and move into that.
Thank you, Reverend Kent. Okay. Growing up, I went to a Black Baptist church in Los Angeles. It was the church where my parents were married, relatives attended, and eventually I was baptized by my choice. I believe that all churches taught the same thing, so it didn't really matter where you went. But by the time I went to college, church going was a faded memory. Years later, while talking to a friend, she said the most astounding thing I'd ever heard. She said, "The Bible is just a story." What? I thought, as I took two giant steps away from her, sure she'd be struck by lightning. Until then, it had never crossed my mind to challenge or question my belief in the Bible or my faith. Many years later, I found myself in search of religion. I didn't feel the same connection to the blind faith of my youth. I decided to explore. Among my search, I read a book called A Chosen Faith by John Behrens. He described a faith that really resonated with me. But could such a religion really exist? He then revealed it was Unitarian Universalism. Oh no, what kind of made up fantasy is this? I've never heard of this religion. Is it a cult? I decided I would check it out. Not to lock myself into anything, I decided I would try various churches of different denominations. I would visit each 4 times and then decide which one, if any, felt like a spiritual home. I had never attended a white church before. Would I feel welcome? Would the sermons be inspiring? Would the music be uplifting? How long is the service? What should I wear? First up was Tapestry. I was greeted at the door by Nancy. She gave me a name tag, some brochures on UU, a tour of the facility, and seated me in the sanctuary for worship service. I felt comfortable enough for a second visit. At my third visit, Nancy literally dragged me by the hand to the social hall to meet people and stay a while. I learned of the social action group and other activities. Well, long story short, I never made it to the other churches. I had found my spiritual home at Tapestry. I became a member 14 years ago. Tapestry has had so much to offer. There's a group for just about everything: women, men, moms, travelers, covenant, handcrafters, meditators, even a weekly lunch. There's social action, including advocates for the homeless, women's rights, and immigrant detainees. There are book clubs, auctions, UU history, sex education, religious exploration for kids and adults, food drives, adopt a family, choir, green sanctuary, welcoming to the LGBT community, race matters, and more. I believe there are so many people out there who are UUs and don't know it. They need to know such a faith exists. Our chalice needs to burn bright like a beacon to guide them to this spiritual place. Tapestry needs your support to be here. For all of us here now, for those still searching, and for the next generation. I shudder to think if Tapestry didn't exist. We can't take this wonderful congregation for granted. Please make your pledge.
Live simply, at home in yourself. Remember the depth of your own compassion. Take care of your body. Be good to it. It is a gift. Go in peace and let the light within you be a blessing to the world.